This podcast is a proud member of Pod Nation Media Network.
Flicker of reels, the shadows crawl. Curtains rise, a ghostly sprawl. The frames are whispers, the stories call. The drifters hum in a hollow tune. Moonlight cuts through velvet gloom. Is it a dream or a real too soon? Step into the screen where the dark turns keen. Journey with the cinephile, unseen, unseen. The veils twist and turn as the silent light burns. A world unknown where the shadows yearn.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of horror cinema, from the eerie classics to the latest spine-chilling releases. Join me as I explore the history, themes, and artistry of horror one film at a time. Whether you're a seasoned horror fan or just stepping into the shadows, this journey is for you. So dim the lights, embrace the fear, and let's talk horror. And let's do that on episode 315. I'm your tour guide of David Garrett Jr., recording out of Columbus, Ohio. And I'm continuing on with my celebration of Italian Horror Month. This is episode number 24 that I have done. So I'm going to be having my Mario Bava double feature here. So the two featured reviews is from 1965. I have Planet of the Vampires, and I'm pairing this up with The House of Exorcism, which is from 1975. So I have a Mario Bava double feature that are also Voyage to the Fives. That's going to be my only through line that I could really come up with there. So then for mini reviews, I went to the Gateway Film Center to check out Predator Badlands. I thought was another Voyage to the Fives watch of Cut and Run, but this is actually a Foray Through the Fours rewatch that I've done. And then I have a couple of screeners here of Lilith, a Jay Crimson film, and Don't Trip. And then I also gave a rewatch to Bring Her Back. That'll be my 2025 rewatch there. And then I also have a documentary of The Beast of Whitehall. So I think that's all I have here then for this intro. So what I will say is thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy coming on this journey with me.
Hello, this is Rue and Willow with the Oh, Fuck Yeah, with Rue and Willow podcast. I'm excited you're here again. Always, I'm excited you're here. When I come to my podcast, we talk about sex. We talk about sexuality. We talk about better sex, erotica, all kinds of yummy stuff related to sex and sexuality. Get entertained, improve your intimacy, and get advice to harness your empowerment. You have the tools right in you. Just get the advice. Listen to my interviews on Fridays with experts, doctors, professors, personalities, people who are free and open and have great things to say. And on Tuesdays, I have erotic fiction. Find me on all the podcast apps. Come today. Don't forget to come today. Enjoy your body. Give yourself that amazing experience of orgasm where you can imagine how wonderful that will feel. All of those amazing hormones flooding your body, making you feel exhilarated, amazing, incredible, like never before. Reach for it, take it, baby. Make yourself come today. You have an amazing day. Love ya. Oh, fuck yeah. Bye-bye.
And for my first mini review here is going to be Predator Badlands from 2025, directed by Dan Trachtenberg. And then the writer is going to be Patrick Eisen, but then the story was done by Eisen and Trachtenberg, and then the characters created by Jim and John Thomas. This is starring Elle Fanning, Demetrius Schuster, Colo Montaniga, I think that might be how you say that. If I mispronounce your name, I do apologize there as well. And then it's also featuring Ravi Narayan. So this is an action-adventure sci-fi thriller. It's an alien invasion film. I consider the Predator movies to be in the horror genre, so I'm at least going to keep them here as being adjacent. And then this is a co-production between the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Germany. So that one helps me kind of get more countries in here. But this is currently sitting on a 7.6 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd for a synopsis. A young predator outcast from his clan finds an unlikely ally on his journey in search of the ultimate adversary. So this is a film that I was intrigued to check out. Now, I'm a fan of the series. Even ones that aren't as good, I still have enjoyed them. There's rich mythology, which has stemmed from the series that intrigues me, but also I haven't had the time to fully delve into it because I know there's like comic books, there's actual books, and just different type of things. I think there might be even some like more films that are kind of under the surface that I haven't checked out. But I'll be honest, outside of knowing that our director here did Prey and having seen that one as well as some of his other films, I came to this blind, just knowing that people have issues, and I consider this one, like I said, to be horror adjacent. So like I said, let me go ahead and delve a little bit more into my knowledge of the Predator universe is limited to the films. I have not seen Killer of Killers, something along that. I haven't watched that animated one as of yet. I do plan on watching it in December. So, and I know I've seen like the alien crossovers. I know that the species is the Yatja. And from films like Predator 2, I understand that they hunt for sport and self-proving, a consistent theme. I appreciate the extended lore, especially hearing them speak and learning about the hierarchy that we get in this film. Let's then discuss our main character here of Dek, who is portrayed by Schuster Kolomontanagi. Now, I appreciate that he's the runt, and that Dek is determined to prove himself against his father's harsh expectations. This is kind of reminiscent of like 300 Spartan ruthlessness. Now, his ability to sway Quay, who is his brother, who I believe the body is done by Michael Homick, and then the voice is done by Stefan Grube, adds emotional depth and strength for his resolve. This perspective is a fresh, welcome change, as it deviates from the typical narrative where the Predator is in control and how they are just so callous and heartless. Now, we have one trying to prove himself. Credit here to Schuster Kolomontagi's performance, as it isn't easy in a suit and makeup like he is to convey some of the emotions that we get here. So then let's go over to the planet where everything kind of goes down. Now, this planet is called Jenna, and it feels like Australia to me in the fact that there's so many deadly things here. On this one, literally everything is out to kill you. If Dek survives his mission, he truly earns it. I like how he encounters different plants, animals, and monsters. What is great is that there is a purpose aside from just showing us different things. And I mean, it's introducing them to come back into play later, so it's not like Chekhov's gun. Or it is a Chekhov's gun where if you see something early, you have to have it later. So that's something I'll give credit here for the writing. Now, something else I'll include as a negative is that Yatjas are supposed to do this alone, where he gets aid from a synthetic who is Thea, portrayed by Elle Fanning, as well as some other things. Now, the last aspect of the story I want to go into and bring up is the paramount for these films is that, since this is a crossover once again with Alien franchise here, is that we have the Weyland-Yutani company, is that capitalism. The moment I saw Weyland-Yutani's name on stuff, it made me smile as an Easter egg to fans of the franchise. They then sent a full team of synthetics to explore and take note of the wildlife. That makes sense. There's also many things that could help with the evolution of humanity. There's some overarching mission here with Thea isn't privy to, and now Tessa is also portrayed by Fanning, and Tessa is supposed to be the one to go out in the field, and then Thea is supposed to be the one that's in the lab. These two are supposed to be able to easily communicate information to each other with this research. So that didn't come to a shock, if I'm going to be honest, for a lot of this stuff, especially when I kind of, saw this kind of go down and get introduced. So that should be enough for the story. Let's go over the acting performance. I've already said that Schuster and Kolomontangi was solid, and Fanning handled her double duty well. The synthetic character of Thea is introduced, offering a more hopeful contrast to Tessa. Their duality and similarity were effective. Naran's motion capture performance for the creature of Bud, who follows the group, that was kind of good, especially with how that actually makes more sense as things go on. I'd also give credit here to Homick, Grube. There's also Ruben de Jong, who plays the father in the suit, and then I believe the voice here, I'm not seeing it very quickly. Actually, I think Schuster Kolomontangi also does the voice for father. And then I'll also give credit here to Cameron Brown, who does the drone synth that is actually helping the Thea and Tessa characters. They all kind of completed this cast for what was needed. Also, thought there'd be filmmaking aspects. I'll credit the cinematography and framing to bring this alien world to life. That was something I had fun with, exploring and seeing the different fauna and animals. It builds tension with everything that wants to kill you. I'd say that the effects were good. There's a combination of CGI and practical effects. I mean, these are kind of just a synthetic, or just a CGI fest. It is what it is. No major issues there. Other than that, the soundtrack and design was good, especially with the language that our Yatjas speak. That's a good touch. So in conclusion, this proves to be a compelling and fresh addition to the franchise, primarily through the lens of Dek, the runt Yatja seeking validation. The film effectively blends Weyland-Yutani's corporate greed with lethal environment of the planet of Genna. The dynamic between Dek and the synthetic Thea provides an unexpected twist to traditional solitary hunt, featuring strong performances notably from Schuster Kolomontangi and Fanning, and excellent technical execution. This is an enjoyable watch that meaningfully expands the Predator lore despite a minor deviation from the Yatja's typical solo hunting code. Recommended for franchise fans and those seeking a solid sci-fi horror experience, in my opinion. So my rating here for Predator Badlands, I gave this a 7 out of 10. And then up next is what I was watching as a Voyage to the Fives, but come to realize is actually a foray through the fours, and it's going to be Cut and Run. This goes by the original title of Inferno in Derrida. Now, this is directed by Ruggero Deodato. And for the writers here, we have Cesare Frongoni, Dardano Sacchetti, and Luciano Vincenzi. Now, this is starring Lisa Blout, Leonard Mann, and Richard Lynch. This is an Italian folk horror jungle adventure thriller film that is from, I believe this is just from Italy. Currently sitting on a 5.6 on IMDb and a 2.9 on Letterboxd, where a synopsis being: a reporter and a cameraman connect a Jonestown cultist and a TV producer's missing son to a South American drug war where cartels are being massacred by cannibals and the skilled assassin. So this is one that I saw back in college. This would have been starting my journey of seeing movies, then watching any sequels or anything like that that were kind of associated with it. So this is considered to be the third part of Deodato's trilogy with Jungle Holocaust and Cannibal Holocaust. I probably haven't seen this one in close to 15 years, so I was intrigued to give it a watch. This is a first time with a critical eye as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do then for my recap is by saying that this is a logical progression from Cannibal Holocaust. That one asks a hard-hitting question of who are the real savages, where we have that documentary film crew going into the Amazon and doing what they do. This one is focusing more on the violence between humanity, with Colonel Horn, portrayed by Lynch, and his main assassin here of Quecho, portrayed by Michael Berryman the Great, and his army of natives attacking camps to take their drugs. We then have this news duo who are reporting on it in their attempt to find Tommy for his father. Now, Tommy is Tommy Ello, portrayed by Willie Ames, and his father is a bigwig at the news station where our duo works, and that is Bob, portrayed by Richard Bright, and our duo is Fran Hudson, portrayed by Blout, and Mark Ludman, portrayed by Mann. So let me go ahead and break down a little bit more. And so what I said sounds better than what we actually get. That's not to say this is bad. What we're doing, though, is the story elements don't fully come together, in my opinion. Now, starting with our main characters of Fran and Mark, I don't believe that they're filming some of the stuff that would be shown on television. Now, I know it was a different time, and I know like the Vietnam War coverage showed more than they probably should have on the news, but they go to a crime scene and film it before reporting. So it's a minor quibble there because, I mean, that's stuff you probably shouldn't show on TV before the cops have had a chance to do anything. Then shifting over to this drug war, I believe that there are things that happen and probably still do. We have these rival factions taking out their competition. I believe someone like Colonel Horn, who clearly has gone rogue, could easily recruit like he has. Lynch has such a great look as well. I love that his lieutenant here is Quencho, as Berryman is one of my favorite character actors. This doesn't reach the brutality of the previous Deodato films, but it shows enough. So there's also a thread here that I don't fully understand, which is how Tommy ended up in the custody of Manuel, who is portrayed by Gabrielle Tinty, who is also in one of my featured reviews. So our film crew claims that they have a lead through Colonel Horn, which doesn't fully line up. This does seem like an easy way to get our duo and then Bob down into South America. I won't harp too much. It also seems more incidental that Colonel Horn was close to Jim Jones. That doesn't add much outside of like a major event to correlate why things are in South America. So the last story element to include here, the Jonestown incident does factor into Colonel Horn, as it's the reason for his change into being a villain. He brings military taxes to South America and trafficking drugs back to the United States. So there's this idea that his break is causing him to be anti-establishment. There's also these ideas of like imperialism and manipulation of the indigenous people. This hits home knowing about missions and government agencies have done in South America. So that should be enough for the story. Let's go over to the acting. The shocking cast here features Blout and Mann, our effective reporters pursuing the story. Lynch is a visually great villain, but underdeveloped in my opinion. Ames is fine as this young man needing to be rescued. Blight plays his desperate and wealthy TV executive father well. But our ensemble cast here is Berryman, Tinty. We also have here Valentina Forte, Eric LaSalle, I know him from ER. We have John Steiner, and then there's also Karen Black. All suited their roles for what was needed. Where I'll then finish out would be the filmmaking aspects. I do think the cinematography and framing were solid. They do well in hiding the seams of things to make the practical effects look more real. This leans more into violent action films than a truly exploitation with the previous two installments. I do like the exotic locations that add tension with how remote and difficult it is to get away. There is that fear that this wildlife and whatnot could hurt people. Other than that, I thought the soundtrack was fine without necessarily standing out. In conclusion, this is a compelling, albeit flawed entry into Deodato's filmography, acting as a bridge between his notorious exploitation films and his more conventional action fare. While the narrative threads concerning the Jonestown cult and the missing son don't fully cohere, the film succeeds as a violent, location-driven thriller detailing the brutality of a South American drug war, featuring solid technical execution, a memorable cast being led by Blout and Lynch, and a tone that is less focused on cannibal shock and more about action violence. It provides a thought-provoking, if uneven, conclusion to Deodato's unofficial trilogy, making it a worth watch for fans of this director and 80s jungle action films. So my rating here for Cut and Run, I gave this one here a 6.5 out of 10. Then I got to check out a screener here of Lilith, a Jay Crimson film. This is from 2025. This was written and directed by Jay Crimson. This stars Judith Periwinkle, Jason Shirky, and Chris Stolter. So there's not a lot of information on this one that is out there, but this is a horror film from the United States. Not enough ratings on IMDb, and I actually had to help create the page for Letterboxd. So this one here follows a nightmarish and surreal journey of a young woman named Lily, portrayed by Periwinkle. So this is one I got a chance to see via screener thanks to our writer and director of Crimson. He sent me a direct message asking if I'd be interested to check this. I like to watch independent horror, so I agreed. Other than knowing the title, I came to this one blind, and to be honest, there isn't a lot of information like I was saying out there, so that also kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just read my whole review, since I'm going to expand the synopsis a little bit more. Lily's a prostitute. We see that she's depressed as she meets different Johns and do various sex acts as well as using drugs. We follow her to different stores and places that she goes, and then she is into the occult, which might explain why this masked figure is following her. We then see Lily do a ritual. It happens, and she conjures something that possesses her and gives her the courage to fight back, but at what cost? So what I'm going to go ahead and say is that most of the characters aren't given names. There also isn't much of the story. It's more about the visuals as we shift through surreal elements, using like stop motion and things that affect. There's also something that I can appreciate, that it's a feast for your eyes, what they do. I'll also warn you, there are some effects in this that were done practically that made me squirm in my seat. So let's go ahead and discuss our main character, a little bit of Lily. Now, the character I'm presuming is her full name is Lilith, a fittingly named for like the biblical namesake, a female figure who tempted Adam and was kicked out of Eden, and she's considered a she-demon. This aligns with the rituals and her resulting ordeal. I appreciate her revenge against her abuser after everything she endured. After giving up, seeing her try to give up is understandable. The final redemption, where she finds peace, validates her struggle. Periwinkle deserves credit for her performance. I then want to discuss the filmmaking aspects. Despite being a limited budget, this impresses. Good cinematography and framing, effectively mask practical effect limitations, creating a close-up, non-found footage feel. It also makes things that Lily goes through feel more real. The bold, pushing boundaries, practical effects, and integrated stop-motion animation are kind of highlights for me. The soundtrack is functional and fitting. Since I don't necessarily know who the characters are, I'll briefly just kind of run through the actors. Shirky, Stoltler, Henry Sewell, Sunshine Hall, Phoenix Stotler, Yarmy Tempter, and Elizabeth D. Ambroso. We're all fine. We have a brief cameo here by Ari Lehman, the first Jason. Christy Adams is in this as well. She's actually somebody that I follow on social media, so everybody pushing Lily to where she ends up, so credit to all of them. In conclusion, this is a visually bold and emotionally raw piece of independent horror that transcends its likely small budget through creative filmmaking. While the narrative is intentionally thin and surreal, focusing more on the nightmarish journey than traditional plot, this succeeds as a visceral experience. Periwinkle delivers a compelling performance, grounding the unsettling visuals and practical effects. For those who appreciate experimental, boundary-pushing cinema and don't require conventional storytelling, this offers a unique and memorable feast for the eyes, solidifying Crimson as a director with a distinct and unflinching vision. So my rating here for Lilith, a Jay Crimson film, I give this one a 5.5 out of 10. And the only reason there is that I'm more of a story-driven guy, so this being more about the visuals, I thought it was great. Couldn't go below my usual, 5 threshold there, but yeah, just kind of wanted to give that information. Then let's go check out another screener here of Don't Trip. So this is from 2025. It was written and directed by Alex Kugelman. This stars Matthew Sato, Will Sennett, and Olivia Royery. I think I probably say that. If I did mispronounce it, I do apologize. But this is a comedy horror film from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 7.5 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, or synopsis being. A struggling writer befriends a powerful producer's eccentric son. So this is what I got the chance to see when the writer-director here of Kugelman reached out, seeing if I'd be interested in the screener. Seeing that this was a horror film from 2025, I agreed to check it out, as I like to check out some of these more independent films for my end-of-year list. Now, when I saw this was a comedy, that's not my favorite genre combination. Other than that, I came into this one blind. And I'll go ahead and just say here, the eccentric son is going to be Trip, portrayed by Sennett, and then Dev is going to be the guy who ends up befriending him of Sato. And where I'm going to kind of go from there is starting by saying that there's some interesting story elements. We're looking at how difficult it is to get your foot in the door in Hollywood and the film industry. It's also looking at the dangers dangers of those with power and how they can do things that are illegal, then get away with it. It makes for an interesting commentary, and it's still quite relevant. So now that it's set up, let's kind of look at our lead character here of Dev. Working for an agent is initial step. For over a year, he's asked or at least he claims at some point he asked Jane, who is the boss that he had, who is portrayed by Pell James, for help, which forced his hand into a failed attempt and his firing. This motivates him, but then he's threatened with a lawsuit because he's using information that he got from working for her. So he pivots to this new effort with Trip. Ironically, the best advice he gets is from Monica, his girlfriend, portrayed by Rory. And I'll say Trip is, like I said, portrayed by Sennett. And it could just kind of create something to get noticed, and like go make something, put it on YouTube, TikTok, something like that. But he seeks acceptance through an alternate route. Sato delivers a good performance as this naive yet determined character. And then I will say here that looking at the character of Trip, the press release points out that he's a Nepo baby. He is a known delinquent, like a convicted drug user, suspected of murdering or causing his girlfriend's disappearance. Despite a trust fund, he lives as if he's poor, a trend among some LA youth, or at least that's what this film is talking about, being something that is like popular. Initially, he bullies and gaslights Dev into friendship. Now, Dev struggles to assert himself, and the whole thing is here that Dev tries to befriend him so he can kind of bring up his screenplay at some point, see if his father, who is Scott Lefkowitz, portrayed by Fred Melamed, if he could, end up showing stuff. But then Trip is very needy. Sennett convincingly portrays Trip as an unhinged, volatile, but in a way where you could almost think he's just eccentric. So the last part of the story to bring up would be the Hollywood system. This shows that even if you have a good concept or script, if you don't have an in or know the right people, it might never happen. Jane was asked according to Dev, but nothing kind of came of it. There's also this idea of how the rich and powerful can get away with things. The cold open comes back into play. It also comes full circle with something at the end. This last part is where it gets terrifying, especially when Trip finally snaps, and that's when it goes into the horror genre. So I'm going to go ahead and shift and discussing the filmmaking aspects. This is largely an uncomfortable seeing Trip pressure Dev. It could be a dark comedy for most, going into the horror genre in the third act. The good cinematography and framing established a Hollywood setting before showing Trip intentionally living below his means. Limited realistic and seemingly practical effects focus on the attention on the story. The music and sound design are fitting. All that's left into the acting performances. I've already said that Sato and Sennett are good as our two leads. They are the focus. I do like Royer as the voice of reason who is ignored by Dev. It's interesting where he ends up. If he just kind of listened to her, things would be different. Melamed and James were also solid. I also like the cameo here by Chloe Cherry, who is Kim, to start this off. In conclusion, this is a relevant and often uncomfortable film that successfully blends dark comedy and horror. It offers sharp commentary on the cutthroat nature of the Hollywood system and the impunity enjoyed by the powerful elite. Sato and Sennett deliver compelling performances of the naive striver and the volatile Nepo baby, respectively, driving a narrative that culminates in a truly terrifying third act. While Dev ignores sound advice and makes questionable choices, the film provides a thrilling and unsettling look at the price of seeking acceptance through the wrong channels. Overall, this independent feature is well shot, well acted, and ultimately effective genre bender that is highly recommended. So my rating here, like I said, enjoyed my time with this one. I gave Don't Trip a 7 out of 10. And I also gave a rewatch here to Bring Her Back. This is from 2025. It is directed between Danny and Michael Filippo. And then Danny also wrote this with Bill Hinsman. This stars Billy Barrett, Sally Hawkins, and Misha Haywood. This is a body, psychological, supernatural horror mystery film that is from Australia. This is currently sitting on a 7.1 on IMDb and a 3.7 on Letterboxd with a synopsis being: a brother and sister uncover a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. A little bit misleading there, but I will digress on that. But if you'd like to hear a feature review, it's going to be episode 297, which was Voyage of the Fives, number 13. I had this paired up with The Mystery of Edwin and Drood. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter here on my recap, and this is actually going to be, for me, I think it's a compelling and unsettling character study that successfully blends family drama, psychological manipulation, and effective body horror. This is also the follow-up to the Filippo brothers of their film Talk to Me. And so, some of the stuff I want to bring up here is we are following Piper and Andy. Now, Piper is portrayed by Sora Wong, and then Andy by Barrett. So they end up having, their father passes away, and they are the ones who find him, and this was in the shower. So they end up going into foster care. They're placed with Laura, portrayed by Hawkins, a woman with a dark past and a secret grand plan involving rituals to communicate with the dead. Laura actually previously had a daughter named Kathy who was also blind like the character of Piper. So this deals with some heavy subject matters, including trauma, grief, loss, physical abuse, and psychological manipulation. And this can be shown in like the form of like gaslighting. So for me, Laura, a former counselor, weaponizes intimacy and her understanding of the system to manipulate Andy and his caseworker, Wendy. She's portrayed by Sally Ann Upton. So the trauma of losing a child, that was something that I could resonate with though as well. I want to go over to the Filippo brothers as their follow-up to Talk to Me, like I said. Both films complement each other by dealing with rituals, communicating with the dead. I also think that the cinematography, framing, soundtrack, and the sound design were effective to build an eerie atmosphere. It also features some great, brutal, and cringeworthy body horror effects that really just kind of make me pop at different times. So the acting here, also a highlight, particularly the performance from Hawkins. She's like a horrifying monster, but there's some things there that humanize her, which is a great aspect to do. And then we also have the resilient Andy, so I want to give credit to Barrett there. I thought Wong does well as Piper. I also want to give credit here to Jonah Wren Phillips, who plays Oliver. There's kind of some interesting stuff that happens there, and just kind of seeing how he is in the beginning and some of the things that he goes through as this movie progresses, definitely wild. So for me, I've seen this one twice now. The second viewing definitely made me enjoy this more. I originally had some issues with the ending, as it kind of felt like it went a little bit happier. The second time around, I see that's not necessarily the case. There's definitely some dark stuff there, but I'm kind of glad that what they did here is that they balance it well. There's some clever stuff that gets revealed with the plot, and there's some horrifying depth here to manipulation that Laura does. I want to also give credit for that. So for me, I actually came up on my rating here. I originally was sitting at an 8. This time around, I am now giving this one an 8.5, and I would recommend it, as this is going to be a contender for my end-of-year list. And I have a documentary that's technically a short because the original version only runs about 39 minutes. I watched the extended one, but this is going to be Beast of Whitehall. This is directed by Seth Breedlove. This is a documentary short, as I was saying, that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 5.9 on IMDb and not enough ratings on Letterboxd, so I'd say about a 2.5 to a 3-star over there with a synopsis being August 1976. 3 boys driving on an isolated stretch of road encounter a Bigfoot with glowing red eyes. They report it to the local police, who would go on to have a sighting of their own. This is an incredible true story of the A-Bar incident. And Beast of Whitehall also explores the impact of Bigfoot has had on the regional culture of the Adirondack in upstate New York. I don't know how to pronounce that word. It's weird. So this is another documentary from Breedlove and the Small Town Monsters team that I hadn't seen as I'm working through their back catalog. This is upstate New York, around the Adirondacks, and this is the A-Bar Road incident that happened back in August 1976, as the synopsis said. So it's an interesting one, as there were younger people who first saw it, but that number grew from there. So I did want to go a little bit mysterious there, and the reason is that the sighting is part of the official police record, at least to an extent. What I like here is that we hear audio excerpts. There were at least 2 police officers who also saw it. One changed what he said, not wanting to necessarily admit to it. So there's some eyewitnesses who have said what they have, and there's an added element of intrigue that it's on the police blotter, which to my understanding makes it an official document. I'll go ahead and say here that Breedlove and his team are great about allowing people to kind of just tell their stories. They also do their own research and present that. I never feel like they're trying to sway me. It's more of just kind of presenting what information is available, allowing the viewer to make a decision. This one is also interesting, is that we meet Paul Bartholomew. He is a boy he was a boy when the incident occurred in 76. He's now an expert on it. And we have these impressions and other evidence, and those are foot impressions. There's also another element here that it could be potentially a UFO landing. That could lead to the explanation of this beast they found. It also makes me pause, since it starts to border into conspiracy theory territory. I won't fault what the area is capitalizing on the sightings for tourism, though, so, credit to them. Like other documentaries from this team, it is well made. It's impressive to see how professional, even going back to watch their earlier ones that they've made, because I've started watching them about the halfway point, I would say, from what has been made so far, and it's just well done. I like how they mesh footage of people being interviewed, showing maps or just the landscapes. There's also elements of using CGI to help bring things to life, since there isn't actual video footage. That's fine, so, it does help to liven this up. Last thing I'll say is I don't necessarily believe that they saw a Bigfoot or some cryptid or even an alien. My stance is that I can't prove them wrong or explain what they say, so it is not out of the realm of possibility either. So in conclusion, this offers a compelling and well-researched exploration of the A-Bar Road incident. Breedlove and the Small Town Monsters team once again deliver a professional documentary that allows eyewitnesses to share their stories without leading the viewer. The inclusion of official police records and the intriguing evidence presented by Bartholomew adds significant weight to the narrative, while the potential UFO connection introduces a more speculative element. The film effectively captures the mystery and the community's response. Ultimately, the documentary provides a balanced and engaging look at unexplained phenomena, leaving the audience to ponder the possibilities. So my rating here for Beast of Whitehall is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. And that's all I have here then for mini reviews. Let me go ahead and get you over to the trailer of my first featured review.
Let's prepare for a landing, Brad.
Okay.
In a 40G gravity atmosphere, strange thing happens to man's body and mind. Barry Sullivan and Norma Bengell take you into the most fantastic science fiction adventure ever filmed.
Emergency! Emergency! Conditions desperate. Little chance of survival. Help us.
Mark, look!
What have you got?
The Galliot.
Bert, get me a fix on this right now. Wes, Brad, controls.
Planet of the vampires. Harboring a form of life worse than death. Planet of the bloodless. Creatures who take men's bodies, but attack like vampires.
I'll tell you this, if there are any intelligent creatures on this planet, they're our enemies.
In this outer space world, the living dead try to escape into life.
Salas.
No, just his body. And I'm just one of many beings on this planet. And we're fighting to survive.
It's imperative that our race continue to exist.
We arranged for several of you to kill each other so that we could take over your bodies. You are our last chance.
No, never. We'll all of us give up our lives to save our own race.
And for my first featured review here is going to be Planet of the Vampires. Goes by the original title of Terra nello Spazio. This is from 1965. It is directed by Mario Bava. Now, we have a lot of people here that helped write this, so let me make sure that I get everybody squared away. So the screenplay was written amongst Ebe Melchor, Alberto Bevola Aqua, Callisto Casluch, Bava, Antonio Romain, and Rafael J. Salvia. So then this comes from the story One Night of 21 Hours that was written by Renito Pestrinario. Now the English version was done by Melchor and Lewis M. Hayward, and then the screen story was done by Melchor as well. So then for this one, we're starring Barry Sullivan, Norma Bengal, and Angel Arenada. And then we also have here the likes of Evi Morandi, Franco Andre, Federico Boido, Stelio Candelli, Alberto Savanini, Mario Morales, Ivan Razumov, Massimo Righe, Fernando Vanelli, Vito Facino, and Giuseppe Mattei. And this is an Italian sci-fi space vampire action-adventure film that is from, I believe, a co-production of Italy and Spain. This is currently sitting on a 6.2 on IMDb and a 3.2 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: after landing on a mysterious planet, a team of astronauts begin to turn on each other, swayed by uncertain influence of the planet and its strange inhabitants. So this is one that I've had on my list for a while. I've put it up on my list a few different times to check it out. It's one of my bigger blind spots when it comes to the filmography of Bava. I believe that this is one of the more popular horror films from Italy that I hadn't seen yet. Decided to pull the trigger here for Italian Horror Month, as this also doubles as a Voyage to the Fives film. So then let's start with our director here of Bava. My update is that I've seen 37 of his features, he's done 37. I've seen 16 for 43%. In horror, I'm at 15 of 16 for 93%. The only one that I'm missing now is Shock, and stay tuned. We have 3 assistant directors. First is going to be Serena Cavavari. Now, she did this for 7 movies. First that I've seen. She did one other one in the genre here with Cellar Dweller. Then there's Manuel San Ramon. He worked on 3 films. First that I've seen, only one he's done in horror. Then over to another legend here of Bava's son, Lamberto. He was brought up as an assistant director before, so I've seen 14 works for 71%. Or he has 14. I've seen 10. 10 are in horror. I've seen 9 of those for 90%. I'm just missing The Kiss from 1974. And looking at our writer room, I was shocked because there is a lot of people here. First is going to be Melchior. He did this for 9 motion pictures. I've seen 3. Not horror. I've seen The Time Travelers. He did 4 in genre. I've seen 2, which would include this and Reptilicus. I have not seen The Angry Red Planet or Journey to the Seventh Planet. And then there is Beverly Aqua. He wrote 14 features. I've seen 3, all in horror. The only ones that he did in genre are with this, Black Sabbath and Anthem Age Vampire. To move into Kosulich, he did this for 3 films. First that I've seen, only one in horror. Then to look at Bava as a writer, he did this for 17 movies, and I've seen 12 for 70%. Now, I've seen 11 of his 13 in horror. I'm just missing Lust of the Vampire, which I believe is actually on my list here for 65, or might even be earlier than that, but he also did Naked You Die. Then to look at Romain, he did this writing for 13 motion pictures. First that I'm seeing, only one he did in horror. Then there's a prolific writer here from Spain of Salvia. He did this for 68 works. First that I've seen, only one in horror. Then last is going to be the original writer here of Pasture and Nirnio. This is his only credit. And then next is going to be the cast. First I'll look at Sullivan. He did a lot. He has 107 features, did 3 in genre. This is the only one that I've seen. He has 2 others in the genre here of Night Gallery and Pyro. And then there's Bengal. She was in 69 films. Nice. Has 2 in horror. Their other one there is Paranoia, which I have not seen that one as of yet. And then we also here have Aranada. He was in 42 movies. I've seen 2. Not horror is Goliath Against the Giant. Did 3 in genre. I have not seen Satan's Blood or A Dragon for Each Corpse. Then the last is going to be Rasimov, just because I know he's been in quite a bit. He was in 43 features. I've seen him in 7. I've seen All the Colors of the Dark. Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. And The Strange Vice of Mrs. Vard. Was in 14 horror works. Top 3 that I'm missing right now are going to be Shock, Body Count, and Eaten Alive. All right, then. So for this one here, let's jump into it and we start in space. There are 2 ships that are checking on a planet. Now, the ships are the Argos and the Galat. Now, we have Mark, who is portrayed by Sullivan, as the captain of the Argos, along with his team, of course. Now, the other ship is helmed by Captain Salas, portrayed by Righi. On the Galat is Mark's brother, Toby, portrayed by Savavini. So the reason that they're here is that this planet seems to be putting out a signal for some time. It's been consistent, and then it just seemed to drop off. So they think that there's some people that are on this planet. So it's called Aura. This is unexplored, and that makes it even more intriguing. Now, both ships attempt to land, and they're pulled in by a very strong gravitational force, so they're both thinking that they're going to be crashing. Now, Mark takes manual control to prevent them from doing so. Now, when they come to, they realize they survived the descent. The problem is that the crew members have become violent towards each other. They try to kill each other. Mark is able to break the hypnotic trance, getting everybody back to normal. Now, the next goal is to see if the Galat is made it safely. It seems that their communications are down. So then they discover that the crew seem to kind of go through the same issue on that ship as the Argos did. Toby is among them. Now, they bury the people that they find that have been passed away. Now, when they return to the Argos, they find that the members of the crew have also perished while they were gone. They're buried and something eerie happens. Tiona, portrayed by Morandi, claims to have seen the dead people moving around. So then Mark takes Sonia, portrayed by Bengal, and Dr. Karen, portrayed by Vanelli, to find where the signal was from. They track it, they're trying to track down where it is on this planet that brought them to it. It is through this they find bones of large creatures that once inhabited here. They believe there is still life. They just haven't been able to find proof aside from that signal. Now, Mark figures that the use of sound waves might be a part of it. When they find the bodies of the deceased are missing, they truly know something is wrong and have to stop the plot before it spells destruction. So let's leave my recap and introduction of the characters. What I want to start is that this is an interesting sci-fi horror film. Title is misleading. This might be a spoiler, but there aren't really any vampires, at least in my opinion. I do think that the giant skeletons they find was the original race that roamed the planet. That's something that's completely conjecture for my part. So I'm not going to hold that against the title of the movie, though, anything like that. So, it is what it is there. Now, I love the setup. This is impressive futuristic horror film. The sci-fi elements are well done. I love the model work of the spaceships. There's charm there. I do love seeing them in space. The visuals are all on point. Seeing the suits that our astronauts wear is a fun element. Hearing the names of different machines and instruments makes it feel more real. What truly drives the part of the film home, though, is the reveal at the end. And I'll put that up there with the original Planet of the Apes. So let's shift over to what makes this horror. First, our ships attempt to land, and then they're pulled to the planet at an alarming rate. When they wake up, the crew starts to kill each other, or try to at least. Now, seeing the planet with its fog and unknown landscape builds tension. This does well in building the creepy atmosphere. Now, when the tension truly drives up is when the bodies of their deceased crew go missing. Tiona then goes crazy thinking that the dead are walking around. I like the reveal there, and once again adds to the atmosphere. Now, something then to include here is that we have the element of like loss of self and body autonomy. At first, we see wherever his here has been like reanimating the dead, which is terrifying. That's an easy route to go for them. It does have a change from there, ramping up the tension. And there's also the idea of cosmic horror and existential dread that drives from being stranded on an alien planet. There's also the isolation and paranoia of figuring out what is, what's kind of going on, figure out who you can trust. And there's just a few things that I wanted to include here, so that's why I did that. Let's then shift over to finish out talking about the filmmaking aspects. The cinematography and framing are good. Part of it are using miniatures that seem real enough. I love the transitions to make it seem like our characters are living in this strange world. There are limited additional effects. I thought those looked good. This would be more with like the wounds of the people from the crash. Other than that, I thought the sound design was good with the music used. All that's left then to be acting performances. Sullivan was good as our captain. I like that he's constantly watching people and different things to figure out what is happening. He cares about his crew. Bengal and Arnada work as the two who are working most closely with Mark. Miranda shows great fear. I wanted to give credit to the rest of the crew here, including Villani. I'll point out here that Candeli, Andre, Savanini, and Riggi are, they have double performances here, so credit to all of them. I like that we get a baseline before we notice they're off, at least for some of them. We also have a young Rasimov in this as well, and I kind of brought him up in the beginning thing, but it's kind of cool there. So let's do a little bit of trivia here. This marks the first collaboration between Bava and his son / assistant director Lamberto. He would become a director himself. Bava used mirror-based Shuftenton process to combine live action with miniatures, thereby avoiding the cost of matte optical printing techniques. Only one spaceship model was built for this film. They went through 15 working titles before American International Pictures settled on Planet of the Vampires. Susan Hart was originally cast as Sonia, but upon arriving in Rome immediately following her honeymoon with AIP co-founder James H. Nicholson, she was locked out of production due to Samuel Z. Arkoff's enforcement of a new anti-nepotism company policy. Hart also suspects that Barry Sullivan's on-set argument with the unidentified production member was another factor of her dismissal. Bengal was not cast as her original replacement until halfway through the shoot. Hart would later appear in Bava's film Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs, although her only scene was recycled from its predecessor, Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. So that was 66 and 65 respectively. The original title of this production was Planet of Terror. The costumes for the entire cast were only done in 20 days. Bava worked with a new camera crew on this film. Along with it, The Terror from Beyond Space from 58 and Dark Star from 74, this is considered to be the primary influence for Alien from 79, although Ridley Scott would later claim that he had never seen it. Before making his screenwriter, Dan O'Bannon explained, I was aware of Planet of the Vampires. I don't think I've seen it all the way through. I had seen clips and it stuck with me and it was evocative. It had a curious mixture that you get with these Italian films of spectacularly good production design and with an aggressively low-budget mentality. Coincidentally, both films featured special effects devised by Carlo Rambaldi. Kind of really cool there. Sullivan admitted that while dubbing his lines for the English version, he wept in amazement over its visual quality. At around the 44-minute mark, a crew member is seen saving records. This was what was using appears to be a flatbed scanner, which was not invented until 75. 10 years after this was made, that's crazy. Morandi initially had a more prominent role, but her part was diminished in subsequent rewrites of the script. The German import DVD was a Super 8 version, German language only, as a special feature on the disc. In 65, American International Pictures distributed this, dubbed in English, and titled Planet of the Vampires, the double bill with Die Monster Die. That was from 65. Italian censorship visa 45629, delivered on the 3rd of September, 1965. So in conclusion, this is a compelling and stylish piece of Italian sci-fi horror with master director Bava. Despite a misleading title, this film excels in creating a palpable, eerie atmosphere through its impressive miniature work, convincing futuristic aesthetic, and effective sound design. The narrative is driven by an intriguing mystery and strong performances from the ensemble cast, including Sullivan, as they navigate the desolate and mind-altering planet of Ara. The film successfully blends sci-fi fiction and horror elements, culminating in a shocking reveal that solidifies its status as a highly influential and memorable genre entry that holds up well for modern viewers. So my rating here for Planet of the Vampires, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. I had a lot of fun here. So I'm not going to do a spoiler section. I don't necessarily need to do anything there. Let me go ahead then and get you over to the trailer of my second featured review.
swear that was her. It could be her twin.
Miserable fucking bastard! You won't use me tonight. You won't use me in your games tonight. Damn you! Dinner is served. Dinner is served. Dinner is served. Take your shitty hands off me!
My God, that can't be her voice.
What happened?
Can that white host of yours erase the darkness of crime? No blessing, no prayer has reached that house. They're damned forever. Like this and this, huh?
Stop it, you fiend!
Don't break my balls, priest. I know what you're thinking. But even if I tell you, there's nothing you can do. It's already happened. And it's about to happen again.
From this house, you and your accursed souls. I exorcise you from this house forever. Be gone! Be gone!
And then up next here I have The House of Exorcism. This is from 1975. This is directed, I've seen on IMDb they have him listed at, so this is Mario Bava. Then this version is also Alfredo Leone, and I'll get to that why. But I've seen somewhere where Lamberto Bava is listed as an assistant director, so I'm not really necessarily sure what's going on there. So then for the writers, we have a lot here again. So screenplay was done by Alberto Cintini and then Leone. And then there's some screenplay collaborators by Neto Azazzini and H.A.L. Craig. And then Bava worked on the original screenplay, uncredited here. And then we also have Giorgio Maluni, Romano Miglioroni, Roberto Natali, and Francesca Ruscica. Now, those were all working on the original screenplay, uncredited here, though. So this is starring Elke Summer, Telly Savalas, and Robert Alda, while also having archive footage involving here Sylvia Casino, Eliso Areno, Gabrielle Tinti, Kathleen Leone, Eduardo Fajardo, Carmen Silva, Franz von Truberg, Espacato Santoni, Elida Valli, and then Andrea Esther Hazy. So this here is a horror mystery film that is from a co-production of Italy, West Germany, and Spain. This is currently sitting on a 4.6 on IMDb and a 2.6 on Letterboxd for a synopsis. A troubled priest attempts to exorcise the soul of a tourist who's been possessed by the devil after witnessing supernatural events at a Spanish villa. So this is one that I learned about having. So this is edited from Lisa and the Devil. I watched that a couple years ago from a Bava double feature for Italian Horror Month. When I got through watching this, that one was high on my list. Now, my buddy Tim pointed out that there was this one here that was edited from that, so I was intrigued to see this. Now, I'm doing it here for Italian Horror Month, doubling as a Voyage to the Fives this time around. So let's do some featured notes here, and I'll kind of skip over. I've done Bava earlier, so I'll skip down to the co-director here of Leone. This is only credit for this role. Then the same is going to be for Lamberto as assistant director. He was also, on Planet of the Vampires. So then Bava was the writer here, was already credited once more. Santini is next. This is the only credit he ever did. Leone did help write Lisa and the Devil in the original film, so those two get credit here. Let's go over to the cast. I'll start with Savalas. He's been in 90 films. I've seen him in 5. Not Horror would be the Bond film of On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. I consider Cape Fear in genre. That's the OG one he was in. Technically, he has 5 horror movies. I've seen 2 with this and Lisa and the Devil. I have not seen Horror Express yet, or Faceless, and The Killer is on the Phone. Next is going to be his co-star of Summer. She's been in 100 works. Ate her in horror. I've seen her in Lisa and the Devil, this and Barren Blood, so she really kind of worked with Mario Bava. I have not seen And Then There Were None, the Agatha Christie story, Severed Ties, Flashback, and Astral Factor. Looks like she's also in a doc of Hollywood ghost stories. Then moving over to Alda. He's been in 39 motion pictures. I've seen 2. He has been in 3 works. I've seen this and The Beast with 5 Fingers. I have not seen The Devil's Hand as of yet. Then also, I'm a fan of Volley, so I wanted to include her. She's 115 features. I've seen 6 of her works. Not horror, she was in The Paradin Case, which I believe is Alfred Hitchcock. Now, she has 13 in genre. I've seen 5 with Suspiria, Inferno, Eyes Without a Face, Lisa and the Devil, and this. Top 3 that I'm missing are Killer Nun, Antichrist from 1974, and Eyes in the Labyrinth. All right, then, so let's jump in this one here, and if you've heard my review of Lisa and the Devil and you remember any of it, then this is going to be a little bit of a repeat here. So we start in an old Spanish town. There's a tour bus letting passengers off. Among them is Lisa, portrayed by Summer. Now, their guide talks about this fresco on the side of a building. They're depicting the devil carrying somebody away. Now, Lisa hears a tune, follows it to a store. Inside, she gets spooked when she sees Leandro, portrayed by Savalas. He looks eerily similar to the fresco. Now, the shopkeeper is making a real-life dubbing for him. She inquires about buying the music box, but it belongs to Leandro. It is from here that she can't seem to find her way back to the square where her bus was. Now, she asks for help, and everybody ignores her. That is until she meets Carlo, portrayed by Santoni. He thinks she looks like somebody he knew named Elena. He goes to hug her, and she pushes him away. This causes him to fall, hitting his head. She continues her search and runs into Leandro. He laughs and directs her where to go. So what I'll include here is that we are seeing these events are in the past. Lisa has a fit, and an ambulance comes to check on her. They are freaked out as to what it seems like she's possessed. Lisa is taken to a hospital where they try to figure out what's wrong with her. Father Michael, portrayed by Alda, comes to check on her. He starts to believe that she's possessed and does what he can to help her. The more they interact, the more that he believes there could be something supernatural going on. He goes about finding out what has caused her to be in this state. So then we jump back into the story from Lisa and the Devil, where Lisa was picked up in a car driven by George, portrayed by Tinti. He is a chauffeur to Sophia, portrayed by Cosina, and her husband Francis, portrayed by Fajardo. They don't get far before their car breaks down. It is in front of a villa. Lisa freaks out when Leandro comes out. Now, this place belongs to the Contessa, portrayed by Vali. She lives with her son, Max, portrayed by Orano. Now, Leandro is their butler. Max falls in love with Lisa at first sight, as she reminds him as well of Elena. Now, there is a bit of a history here between Carlo, Contessa, Max, and Elena, which seems to now involve Lisa. The events of the night seem to explain why Lisa is in her condition, to which Father Michael tries to help before it is too late. So let's leave my recap action of the characters. Where I want to start is that this is an intriguing piece of cinema to talk about because it's mostly using footage from Lisa and the Devil, with a few scenes filmed with Summer, Alda, and a young actress here, or just an actress here of Carmen Silva. The trivia I found is that the people found the original film to be confusing, so they thought that if they included elements of The Exorcist, it would help explain things. I personally don't know if it's needed because it ends up just being a direct ripoff of The Exorcist, so there's that. I'm actually going to go ahead and... I'll come back to that here shortly. I'll then direct you to my review of Lisa and the Devil if you want a more in-depth breakdown of that film. What I will credit here is the eerie atmosphere. We have this villa where we have Contessa, Leandro, and Max living. There's a surreal element where Lisa sees Carlo. She thinks he's dead. Leandro changes his stance at one point where they're doing a trial run for his funeral, hence the dummy. There's also this time loop element and what kind of seems to be purgatory. It feels like a nightmare play out, which is something I can always appreciate. Now, something else to give credit to here is be able to get Summer back to take on the role of Lisa. Her pretending to be a possessed person is good, even if it's derivative and just reenacting elements of The Exorcist. I also want to include Alda's performance as Father Michael. There's a subplot where he was in love with a woman named Anna, portrayed by Silva. Something happened, he now blames himself. There's also the idea of like loss or battle for faith. I mean, that's definitely prevalent in The Exorcist as well. This doesn't add a lot, in my opinion, aside from padding out and including, some more footage. I'll also include here the elements from the original stuff are still fleshed out fairly well. There's this aspect of like power and sin and guilt with what happened between the family who lives in the villa. There's also this idea of destiny, how you can't escape your fate. You could also see this as like a reincarnation with Lisa and Elena. The purgatory idea plays with the repetition of the past. Lastly, there'd be this nightmare logic through questioning what is reality and how the surreal blurs the lines. One last story element to include here would be the rational idea of modern medicine for the explanation versus the spirituality of the church. Italian films do this so well since Catholicism is just so ingrained in their society. It also borrows elements, like I said, from The Exorcist, just on a smaller scale there. I'll then shift over to explore the filmmaking aspects. For the majority of this, I have to give credit to Bava by saying that his cinematography and framing were great to capture that surreal nightmare. The editing of footage of Lisa and the Devil to incorporate in the possession aspect for this new cut was good. It doesn't go overly long with the runtime, so there's another credit. The problem is that the tone is just off. The soundtrack and design were good as well. Last would be the credit the acting performances from the original material, since I've already given credit here to the cast for this new stuff here. Savalas has such an eerie performance. He looks like he's having a blast though. I like Cosina, Valli, Tinti, Santoni, and Orano for their roles. The editing does well to capture the heart of the original film for the most part, and still that allow that to show through. So then there's a little bit of trivia here that I'm going to include. Though it's already listed as being connected with Woody Allen's Annie Hall, which shows a House of Exorcism as a twin bill on a marquee, it's actually worked into a visual punchline since Woody's character, L.V. Singer, hates Los Angeles, and jovial Christmas music plays while the marquee, along with Messiah of Evil, is shown, representing L.V.'s feelings. A sex scene between Cosina and Tinti and Lisa and the Devil is repeated here, but extended with a long sequence shot by producer Leone and using body doubles. So that's kind of interesting. Didn't necessarily put that together while watching. So in conclusion, this is a curious cinematic experiment stitching together the haunting, surreal imagery and narrative themes of Bava's Lisa and the Devil with the more conventional possession horror footage. Though the original film offers a unique, eerie atmosphere exploring sin and destiny, the added scenes frame it as an Exorcist clone, ultimately harming Bava's vision. Strong performances from Savalas and Summer anchor the film, and the technical blending of footage is skillful. However, by replacing the original's beautiful ambiguity with a familiar horror plot, this version sacrificed its distinctiveness, making it a fascinating but less satisfying watch than the source material. So my rating here for the House of Exorcism, I'm actually going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Would still say it's just an oddity to check out if kind of the things I've had said here sound good, but I'm not going to do a spoiler section. Don't necessarily need to delve into anything more there, so let me go ahead and get you over to one last break before I close out the show.
Pod Nation TV has you beamed up with Out of This World award-winning podcast, found exclusively on Pod Nation TV. Download Pod Nation TV for Roku and Fire TV. Pod Nation TV, Out of This World.
And welcome back. So if you'd like to send me any sort of feedback, anything you want read on the show, or any screener requests, anything like that, you can send those to journeywithacinephile@gmail.com. If you'd like to read any of my written reviews or see any of the old past podcast episodes, all of that is being stored over at Journey with a Cinephile. That is my blog, and that's going to be horrorreview.webnode.com. If you'd like to follow me and become friends on Facebook, it's going to be David Garrett Jr. is my name over on there. There's going to be a link in the show notes. And then if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's going to be Buckeye from Mish. And then if you'd like to follow my Letterboxd page where I have all of my reviews, whether that is going to be horror or non-horror, that's going to be David OSU is my name on that. Instagram and Threads, I'm David OSU87. Over on my personal Instagram page, you might see some of my family stuff every now and then whenever I remember to post something. My wife is much better at it than I am. But then if you'd like to follow the Journey with a Cinephile Instagram, that's going to be Journey with a Cinephile, all one word. And then also direct you, if you'd like, to the Discord channel. That's going to be the Nightclub Discord, but I have a page over there. And there's also some other great pages of other shows and them kind of messing around and everything like that. Do highly recommend if you want to go ahead and check that out. And then the last thing I'll actually say here, if you would like to listen to the show a day early, this is always going to be streaming over there on the Pod Nation TV app. So I will have, once again, a link in the show notes for that if that is something that you're interested in. So yeah, there's some great stuff here. There's some great shows on some of these other networks and stuff. I highly recommend checking them out. And then for the next episode, which is going to be episode 316, going to be my last of the Italian Horror Month episodes that I'm doing for 2025. And it's going to be actually the last Mario Bava film that I haven't seen of yet in the horror genre of Shock. And I'll be pairing this up with Lost Soul. So the whole thing here is that I believe Shock must be the most popular, where Lost Soul is the highest rated that I haven't seen. So that'll be those two there. And then since we are approaching December, I'm also going to be doing Night Train Murders. This is I believe a Voyage to the Fives rewatch. I need to double check that it is. I might end up moving it if it's not, but this one also kind of doubles as a Christmas movie as well, so a very bleak one at that. So then I have more mini reviews for you. I believe I know I have a screener to check out on there. I might have a second one, and then if not, I'll pick up some of the Italian horror movies I was going to be watching earlier this month and kind of fill out that, but I'll have as much of a full episode as I can do here for you. So I think that's all I need to say for this outro, except that wraps up this episode of Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of horror cinema. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow along for more deep dives into the macabre. Until next time, keep watching horror, and remember, fear is just a frame away.
It had been a wonderful evening, and what I needed now to give it the perfect ending